Hello, and welcome to Restoring Hope, the podcast of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood. My name is Patrick Higgins. I'm the Executive Director of Communications for the congregation, and our guest today is Bill Carroll, who is the Executive Director of St. Joseph's College of Indiana. Bill, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you, Pat. I'm fine.
Great. Well, Bill, we really want to delve into the conversation about St. Joseph's College of Indiana. But before that, I was hoping you could give our listeners just a bit of your background and how you came to work at St. Joe's.
All right, I was formerly president of Benedictine University for 20 years outside of Chicago. And when I got to Benedictine, they had 1,400 students. When I left, they had 11,000 students. Prior to that, I had served at Ohio Dominican College in Columbus, Ohio for 5 years as provost and acting president.
Oh, I didn't know you were there. That's right here in Columbus. That's probably 10 miles from me.
And Sister Marianne Matesic was my president, and she taught me more than any graduate school course ever did. I'm a graduate of the Catholic University of America, like they like to be called, and my major, PhD in philosophy and theology, with a specialty on Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite, which we're all fond of, and we follow him closely. But I got into administration because I like teaching, and I was afraid I was going to run out of students. I started teaching in Baltimore, Coppin State University, and then moved on to Ohio Dominican and then Benedictine. At Benedictine, we were in serious trouble. As I said, 1,400 students, and I left with 11,000. For 10 years, we were the fastest growing university in the country, with sites all over Asia. We were the first Catholic college into Arizona, looking for markets. Many Catholics in Arizona were Catholic college. So we founded a site in Arizona that's alive today. In Asia, the population, we started in China only and then spread to Vietnam. And after 20 years of being president, I got bored and left and started my own company called Hunter Global Education that focuses on taking primarily Catholic institutions to Asia for income-producing partnerships with Asian institutions. As I began that journey around 2016, 2017, I got a call from the board chair, or Mike Vinay, at St. Joseph's. His son had gone to Bennett, which is across the street from Benedictine, asking me if I would come over and be president of St. Joseph's College, which had closed by then. And I said, no, thank you. I don't want to be president anywhere again. But he was persistent. And finally I said that, okay, I'll come back and help with the academic programming. I did. And then I realized that the place was in need of some kind of executive director. And I agreed to be the acting executive director. And that was probably 8 years ago. I'm still the executive director at St. Joseph's College.
Okay. All right. Now, Bill, give us a little bit of the history about St. Joseph's, because you mentioned that it closed when you were approached, and that's no longer the case. It's reopened, but it's kind of reopened in a transformational way, correct?
Correct. And I think we need to be careful. I used the wrong word closed, but it really wasn't closed. In the eyes of the public, it closed. But in the eyes of the board and the eyes of the priest of the precious blood, this was simply a change of direction. They voluntarily suspended accreditation with the Higher Learning Commission, which meant that all their credit programs disappeared in 2017. And from the outside world, it was closed. But internally, it was a reshifting, a refocus. St. Joseph's College, founded in 1889, has gone through a series of iterations. This will probably be the 11th iteration. The story behind St. Joseph's closing is a story behind many Catholic institutions and private institutions today. The increasing loss of 18-year-olds, okay, the demographic decline has finally happened. Infrastructure, okay, which we have put off for years, keeping it up to date, finally bit the college in terms of the millions of dollars we needed to put into deferred maintenance. And, the desire for a college degree has gone down dramatically. There's another piece in there that we don't talk about too often, or not at all, is, in the 60s, a huge transition took place with, congregationally funded institutions, Prior to 60, most of our institutions were really supported by the congregations. They gave their blood, their life, their very being to the institution. As their numbers dwindled, the institutions had to hire, full-time lay people who needed a living wage. So that transition from being supported by, clerics, religious people, not the lay people who aren't religious, but by religious congregations, to a full-time lay faculty and staff created a burden, a financial burden we have yet to recover from. So that leads us not to pay off the infrastructure repairs we need, putting that off to the future, as they say, kicking it down the road. Well, St. Joseph's, it came. The road came to an end, and the board made a good decision. They closed, they shut down, not closed, with the idea of coming back. In the process of coming back now, I came on and we developed a strategic plan to do two things: to start certificate programming, focusing on in and out training programs that provide students a nationally normed certificate, but also access almost immediately to jobs. We focused on healthcare, had a tremendous response. We never gave up the dream of credit programs again, and talked about partnering with accredited institutions to bring their courses to St. Joseph's, and offer credited programs there. Prior to COVID, we had Ivy Tech on campus. They were offering computer science courses. They started out well. COVID killed that. We've tried a couple other times with other Catholic institutions bringing courses to the campus. The market just for credit programs is not right there right now in Rensselaer, Indiana, or across the country. We're part of the same 18-year-old decline that the rest of the nation is feeling. So we're focusing now on the certificate programs, and we have dramatically expanded that. In the last 2 years, we've added building and trades. And what that means is we are teaching students, working with students, to develop plumbing, HVAC, electrical, welding, and carpentry and millwork. And we're not only doing training with the students, we're actually building a house on the campus. Probably the only institution in the country that is really building a house, using students to build the house, and then the building will be sold, the new house will be sold to the public. The campus has designated at least 30 building sites, one house a year, built by students to be sold to the public. And we're beginning to build. Our first house is done. The second house will begin in August and September. We've also noticed that there's a tremendous need for CDL drivers. CDL is the license given to your 18-wheelers, your school bus drivers, your dump truck drivers. That has taken off like a jet. So what St. Joseph's is doing here is we're listening to our mission. Our mission is to serve the educational needs of the community. Our mission is to be inclusive. Our mission is to be a Catholic institution, and we're doing that through developing these trades, these healthcare programmings, the CDL, and will there be credit courses? Maybe someday, but right now we're focusing on those areas that will give individuals in Indiana quick access to high-paying jobs. On the trade side, we're partnering with the local unions that are working with us to move our students from our programs into their apprenticeships. So you can see there's a track right there going from trades to a real job that pays significant income. As a philosophy major, I was not guaranteed. I was told I wasn't going to get a job way back when. Yeah. And that's still true today. What we need to do is provide college students a backup for, say, a humanities degree. So that could be a CDL license. That could be something in the healthcare area industry. It could be a veterinary assistant license. They're immediately hireable with these certificates.
And Bill, what kind of response have you gotten from this? I mean, obviously you went from a 4-year accredited university to a certificate in trades program. What has enrollment been like, and what's been the reaction of the students?
Well, one of the things that I am learning along this journey is we cannot be measured by traditional norms for higher education. So when I was a president, when I was in traditional schools, we talk about FTEs, full-time equivalent students. I would project maybe 5,000 FTEs for the fall, and then I could base my budget on that, et cetera, et cetera. That's a credit model, all right? In the non-credit model, we are enrolling students all the time. And when we first started the certificate programs, we had tremendous response from the community. And Rensselaer is a rural community, about 4,000 people, great response. And what we notice is after a while, the response declined. And that is significant because it's reinforcement of what I've just said. The market will not support, okay, a college that requires thousands of students. That's what happened to St. Joe's. So that's what St. Joe's has numerous dormitories all over the campus because they were recruiting throughout the country. Rensselaer supported us out of the box, but only so many people need a CNA in the area. So now we're being forced to expand regionally. We're being forced to bring in other training programs like the trades, like the CDL. In the CDL and the trades, we're actually partnering with manufacturing companies, all right, with areas that need those kinds of workers. So the initial response was gratifying, but we ran out of students. Much like the rest of higher education, we had a lot of students to start with. Now the numbers have gone down. We're expanding regionally that I see us, reaching out to Chicago, to Indianapolis. A lot of our courses now are being taught online. Our billing and coding, as far away as Massachusetts, we have students. So we're using the online venues too. But one of the lessons learned is that the rural college, there are hundreds of us out there across America. Catholic, okay, the local population cannot support us alone. We need to do dynamic and dramatic things to stay in existence in the 21st century.
Okay, all right, that's insightful. So let me ask you, how do you balance honoring the college's legacy while forging a new future? I know that, and if Bill, we can edit this part if you don't want to talk about it, but I know that you had some reaction from alumni about the transition of St. Joe's. So how do you balance that? How do you honor the college's legacy while forging a future?
Well, Pat, I would respond is, what is the college's legacy? All right. And I have a long experience with alumni. At Benedictine, we tore down a 168,000 square foot building. And the alumni revolted and said, the college will never be the same. Okay. And if you go to Benedictine today, I'll give you $100 for anybody who remembers that building. Okay. That building they thought defined the college. It didn't define the college. In dealing with the St. Joe's alum, they're wonderful individuals. They're from around the country, but each group of alum, a different cohort, has a different memory of what St. Joe's is. So the group in the 60s have a very different memory than what the 70s or the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s have. And that's great. That's what alumni do. When the college closed, they were hurt. They were angry. Many are still angry, okay? But the college has to move on. The college closed because of financial reasons primarily, and the wisdom of the board to say, we can't keep going this way. We've got to make a tough decision. They made that decision. And now with the college coming back, I'm seeing a mellowing of the alumni. More alumni are getting on board saying, hey, this is pretty cool. Most alumni did not know that St. Joe's had gone through 11 different iterations. All right? 11. They started out training priests. They were a boys' school. They were a high school. They were a 2-year school. Okay, those are different legacies in a sense, but what's behind all that is the missionaries of the precious blood. They are the driving force. They set the vision, all right, and we are still under the guidance of the missionaries. And we are Catholic because the missionaries support us. And, the missionaries, the priests I talk to, the brothers I talk to, are excited about this new direction because they understand the past. The alums who are from the 65 group, we're not going to convince them, all right? I would love to be open with 12, 1,500 students offering credit programs, but that's not what the college is called to do right now. We're called in a different direction, okay? And the challenge now for us is we're not offering philosophy and theology. How can you be Catholic? All right? I get that a lot. And, I take that kind of personally. Well, I take that personally because I've taught, philosophy and theology. And as a trained philosopher and theologian, those are sciences, okay? Those are not designed to convert people. Theology and philosophy courses help us understand more deeply our faith, all right? And so one does not have to have philosophy and theology, okay, to be Catholic. I look at universities, Catholic universities have two functions, and some of us incorporate both. Some, like St. Joseph's, can only incorporate one. The primary function of a Catholic university, traditional, okay, is to understand the faith, okay? That's where your philosophers, your theologians, your sociologists, your historians look through, okay, the lenses of their sciences at faith itself. Faith and reason coming together at that level. Well, we don't have that. But the second thing is, not only does the institution have to work on understanding the faith, the institution has to live the faith. All right? And I think that's where the focus of St. Joseph's College is right now. We are small, all right? Our mission is to be inclusive, to, reach out and, meet the needs of the local community. We do that through a modeling, I hope, of Catholic Christian values. We're obviously in conformity, okay, with the teachings of the church, even though we don't offer those high-level credit courses. We do it by action. And I think that's the difference. And as these colleges move ahead, there's going to be a greater understanding that Catholic is more about action than simply understanding. There's an understanding role there, big time. But for institutions like St. Joseph's right now, our focus has to be on action. And in action, okay, that will lead others to the faith.
That's a great answer. I hadn't thought of it that way. So you're not so much out there preaching, you're showing, correct?
Okay, but I would say preaching and showing are about the same thing. Preaching and showing can be the same thing, Pat, okay? All right? We're living what the preacher talks about. And, we still have a presence on the campus of a brother, okay? We still have, sacrosanct, the church, okay? We don't have 1,100 people walking around the campus, but those are outward signs that we are still very much associated to the church. We're in close relationship with the local bishop, but, there's a thing, for a place to be called Catholic, okay, there has to be a juridic person, okay? That is a not a real person, but it's a symbol of connection to the church. Our juridic person is Father Jeff, okay? And if Father Jeff smiles at us being Catholic, we're Catholic.
And you're referring, of course, to Father Jeff Griekerch, who's the provincial director of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood and also a St. Joseph graduate, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. We receive, through Father Jeff, our permission to be Catholic. And our counterbalance is we have to work with him and the board and others to show this is how we are Catholic without having the faculty and the staff, understanding, living the faith.
That makes a lot of sense. So the Missionaries of the Precious Blood, their spirituality is still very much present on the campus, correct? Okay, so do you know, or can you explain how, maybe even in the most, in the lightest sense, how does the charism of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood influence the college's work today? Or maybe you've already answered that. Maybe it's just that actions are, through your actions, through the fact that you are open, that you are thriving, that you are carrying out that mission of reconciliation, hospitality, and community, especially. Is that correct?
Yeah, one of the things that I've always struggled with, and I think we're there, is at some point the baton has to be passed from the religious organization to lay people, okay? You have raised us well. We've gone through Catholic school. We've gone through Catholic higher education. We're practicing Catholics. Trust us. All right. And I think at St. Joseph's College, that's a model at play. All right. You have a wonderful board of trustees, significant presence of the congregational members on the board. They'll step in when they need to, but they're mostly sitting back, I think, and smiling, saying, we agree with that position. It's not that the congregation is telling us what to do. We are swerving ahead, knowing they're supporting us. Huge difference, all right? And again, it's the mission that gives us permission to do what we do. The mission doesn't say you're going to have credit courses, okay? It does say we're liberal arts. Well, liberal arts is we teach critical thinking, all right? We teach problem solving, but in the context of the trades, let's say. We're still realizing that mission. And I think that at a board meeting, it's kind of interesting that we check in all the time, okay, with the priests and the brothers present. Is this okay? Are we okay? And they have every right to dissent. It's a community of fellowship between lay and religious that I think is dynamic and a model for other institutions.
Okay, yeah, and that's a great answer. That is a great answer. And I like that the fact that you said that it has to transition in at some point, and it has transitioned, and it's already started, and in some cases it's already made that transition. So let me ask, our podcast is obviously called Restoring Hope. So how do St. Joseph's programs equip students not with not just job skills, but with purpose and hope? And that's a bit of a philosophical question, I understand.
Yeah, we can do that. The exciting thing to me is at Benedictine, one of the things we got into big time was adult education. And your adult person, the average age was 28 to 35, let's say. I had them as old as 75 there, students. And when we started the healthcare programs at St. Joseph's, I quickly realized these were adults. These weren't 18-year-olds. And these were mostly women who, for whatever reason, did not go to college out of high school. They went to work. Maybe they raised a family. Okay. So they come back and they take a 4-week course. They take the state test, let's say, as a certified nursing assistant. They pass it and get their certificate. Hope, okay? They take off like a rocket ship. I didn't think I was good at school. I can do this. Now we have a growing number of our certificate graduates who want the next level. We're actually looking into an LPN program that could migrate into an associate's degree program someday, or a partnership with another university to move these women and 2 or 3 men into a nursing program as a result of our certificate program. We've started a pre-nursing certificate program where these students take 3 of our courses, and that lines them up to try and get them enrolled into a nursing program, working with a couple institutions to try and set up those programs. So your question of hope, these individuals did not go to school for a reason. Some of them, they had families to raise. Some of them didn't think they were good students, all right? When they take these courses and do well, the blinders are off, okay? The Sandman has left their eyes. I can do this. I want more. Wow.
Wow. Okay. So do you say, does St. Joe's engage students who have maybe kind of felt left behind by this traditional college system?
Oh, I think absolutely. Okay. The traditional college system, of which I've been a part of, obviously, for a long time, is a lockstep 19th century model in which, people go freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. You take 120 credits, you're therefore a college graduate, able to go. Some people don't respond to that kind of a learning format. And a lot of our students are those students. So they didn't go to college. They felt the pressure from high school to do well in a certain way. Their learning styles may not have been met. Okay. They chose not to go to college. They went to other areas of jobs. Okay. The other issue is we have, as a higher education community, really put down the trades. All right. And I think that's terrible. If you don't have a college degree, you're nothing. So sad. I have learned, and I grew up in a construction family, that critical thinking skills are taught big time in digging, a foundation or working on a construction site or driving a truck. All right, that the critical thinking skills are there. And someone would say to me, well, they don't read Shakespeare. No, but you don't read blueprints either. Okay. So I think we need to balance it out that the trades are honorable. All right. The trades right now are the future of a lot of young people's, careers. And there's good money and there's honor and pride in those trades. Everybody does not have to go to college to be successful. And unfortunately, over the years, we've painted a very difficult picture for some people.
We have, right. We have. So, Bill, can you maybe give us even an estimate of what the traditional four-year college graduate leaves school, the kind of debt that they leave school with, if you have that information, versus the kind of debt, if any, that a St. Joe's College graduate leaves with?
Our current graduates leave with zero debt, as far as I know. Okay.
Wow, isn't that fantastic?
And what you're hearing across the board is it depends on the college you go to, and students can leave with six-figure debts. All right, and they're paying that off the rest of their lives. At Benedictine, when I was there for the 20 years till 2015, the average debt was about $20,000, which I didn't think was bad. All right, but it depends on what institution you're. Some institutions are charging $50,000, $60,000 a year, and that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Our goal at St. Joseph's, as always, is to keep our prices low, to be competitive, to give our students a shot at a really good job and career.
And so St. Joe's is a combination of online and in-person, correct? Can you kind of make that distinction? What classes can you take solely online? What classes do you need to be in person for, or is it a hybrid model?
Yes to all those. Okay. We're moving like it's pretty hard to do a clinical online. I really don't want my nurse have never had touched a patient. Okay, but we are moving more towards online as we get regional. Students aren't going to want to drive every day from Chicago to Rensselaer, where the bulk of a lot of those lecture classes can be done online. So we're balancing out, like a lot of the healthcare require, some time in a clinic. They're going to have to spend time in the clinic. We do not want to lose our presence in Rensselaer by going 100% online. There's something to be said about community. And my challenge with online is, how do you keep community online like we used to have in the traditional format? And as we grow bigger and wider, the online call is going to get much more intense. But right now, we're working primarily on hybrid. Most of our courses are still at St. Joe's, on campus. But for example, the billing and coding, which, billing is coding, and coding is for the medical side. Every doctor's office in the country has someone who needs that certificate. We have it totally online. A person in Alaska can get a billing and coding certificate by taking our courses online. That's 100% online. Some of our veterinary assistance programs. When we started out the veterinary assistant program, we had a waiting list in St. Joe's, but like everything else, that population dwindled as they went through the course. Now we're moving online a little bit more, and that interest is growing again. So that's the question, I think, of every educational format. How much is going to be online? How much is in person? The in-person has a sense of community. It's much easier to touch the person next to you than this room full of faces on the screen.
Do you have an information on like people online, especially? Is your impact across the country? Are you getting students across the country taking courses online, or are they mostly local? What's that demographic look like?
Most of them are local now because we're really just beginning to push out. Okay, we've had maybe 15 or so online. To start.
Wow. Okay, and that's impressive, being that you're probably just at the very beginning stages of this transformation.
The other direction is we're going to be, the future of Catholic higher education is going to be dramatically different than the past. We're going to be losing a lot of colleges. All right, a lot of them are going through right now what St. Joseph successfully did in 2017. And you're seeing more and more colleges close every day. The future of Catholic higher education is partnership. All right. These Catholic institutions have got to get together and partner in unique and exciting ways. For example, I don't need 2 philosophy departments whether I'm in 100 miles of another Catholic institution. I can have one. But for St. Joe's, it's very hard for a traditional institution to develop certificate programming or truck driving or trades. Traditional faculty are not trained to do that. Okay? We're going to partner plans for the future with other institutions to take our certificate programs, our trades programs, to them to augment what they're already doing on the credit side.
Okay. Okay, Bill, what keeps you hopeful on the most difficult days of institutional change? What gives you hope?
Tomorrow. Okay. Learned a long time ago, Pat. When something bad breaks, it's just the first couple pages of a long book. All right. And there are many, many more chapters to come. And you look at St. Joe's 2017, I mean, that was traumatic for the St. Joe's community, but also for the Rensselaer community. And it didn't look very hopeful. And now, as we are growing back, the college went from millions of dollars in debt to today, Patrick, we are debt free.
Wow, that's impressive.
The college has no debt, okay? And the goal is to stay small in terms of personnel and lean so we can respond quickly to the needs of the community. And the challenge is our community is growing from Rensselaer to Northwest Indiana and elsewhere. So I think that what I have learned is I don't respond one way or the other. You probably need an even keel, knowing that tomorrow will bring a totally different scenario. If I focused on all the bad days, I would have been dead 25 years ago. Okay?
Okay.
You focus on tomorrow,
that's a good
knowing
answer.
something's going to break. I think the biggest guide is when you come to management, you ask yourself a question. What do I need to do today that 3 months from now I wish I did today? You don't ever want to be sorry about a decision. So you get big time decisions that you have to make. You should make them today so you're not sorry you didn't make them 3 months from now. And a lot of that can be around, I need to get rid of some, in traditional college, I need to make some cuts. All right? If I don't make cuts, I've decided not to make cuts. That's a sad way to go. It's a hard way to go. But for the health and good of the institution, you make tough decisions. You can't put them off.
Okay. All right, Bill, what do you want alumni and longtime supporters to know about St. Joseph's today? What message do you send to them?
First of all, St. Joseph's is alive and well. All right? St. Joseph is still Catholic. St. Joseph is still fulfilling its mission. St. Joseph is now, since 2017, developed a whole new block of exciting new alumni who are extremely supportive of the institution. We invite, traditional alumni to get back involved with us, okay? To understand that the history of St. Joe's is not a snapshot of 4 years, but it's a snapshot of 100 plus years, all right, of this institution, taking lefts and rights. Bill Gates in his book called The Road Ahead said many of the early computer companies failed because they failed to look down the road and see the bend coming, all right? And what St. Joe's has done in its history is it's looked down the higher educational road and saw the twists and turns and adapted accordingly to meet those twists and turns rather than driving off the road. I would say to alumni, we're here. We're still St. Joseph's College. Come get to know us. And welcome home.
Okay. So what advice would you give to other institutions, particularly Catholic institutions, that are navigating reinvention or decline?
Wow. Going back to what I just said a minute ago, you're going to have to make tough decisions. And Catholic institutions that I know of, I told you the loss of the religious is still there. The deferred maintenance is huge. A new phenomenon in the last 15 years or so is a thing called discounting, where you're giving students scholarships that you don't have the money to give them. You're simply reducing the tuition. So I've had presidents say, well, Bill, I've got more students than I've ever had, but I don't have any money. Well, not when you're discounting at 65%. All right. So if your tuition's $100, let's say, and you're knocking $65 off of that, that leaves $35. So you have more students, more needs, but less money. We have to have presidents and leaders at these institutions and board of trustees that look to the non-traditional. You need to find new markets of students. The 18-year-olds are not there right now. International is a hot area, okay, especially Asia, where they still want American degrees. Our Catholic institutions are welcomed in Asia. The idea of being all things to all people, we can't do that anymore. We never were all things to all people. In the rural communities like the Rensselaers, they're struggling. The population will not sustain a 4-year college. What do? I think you need to partner with other institutions. You have to realize that in the past, what we usually do is a president will say, we need to cut the budget this year by 25%. So everybody cuts their budget by 25%. The scary thing there is you're also cutting the meat of your income producing areas. Identify who are your income producers. Don't cut there. Actually add money there. All right. Higher education, Catholic higher education, is a business. We don't like to use that word. But income has to equal expenses. The other thing that I would stress is, in the experience of St. Joe's, one of the things I wish we could have done, and I wasn't there then, was at least keep 1 or 2 credit programs alive. Put the resources behind 1 or 2 credit programs so we didn't lose the accreditation from the Higher Learning Commission. That takes years to come back from and really stifles in how some of the programs we're able to develop can develop without that accreditation. So a struggling institution, I would say, look at your curriculum hard. What if you have a major, let's say of 3 or 4 students, let it go. Okay. And also the associated costs. These are tough. These are tough decisions. But the job of a president is to protect the institution. All right. That requires so become mean and lean. All right. Deal with difficult cuts. Cut out extraneous things that you don't need, and always look for new markets of students. One of the things I was called the popcorn president because I had a lot of ideas. And all the ideas don't happen, but some do. But I, for example, in terms of my desire to find new population of students, I talked about Asia. I talked about Mesa, Arizona, where we have the only Catholic college in the state right now. I developed a certificate program that I think is going to be a huge moneymaker that I'm willing to offer the first college. It's a certificate program for aliens on intergalactic space travel. Now, they laugh at that, but when those aliens come, we got that certificate ready for them, okay? But that's it. You need to think way out of the box, okay? For example, another one is why not start
That's thinking out of the box. Absolutely.
Why not start a senior university? Benedictine started Benedictine Senior University. The requirement to get in it is you had to be retired. Older people, I guess myself now included, are looking for things to do. They want to reflect on their life. Philosophy is a great place to be for those kinds of. Give them an opportunity to reflect. They'll become the biggest alums, okay, you can imagine, because they're so appreciative of the idea to sit down and talk about unpacking my life in the context of a philosophy course. Wow.
That's a great idea. That's innovative. That would have never occurred to me.
You know, we had a separate building and separate courses and certificates going on. You'll have a former judge sitting in the front row of your philosophy class. That's intimidating for a faculty. It's exciting, though, too. Really exciting.
Yes. Okay. Wow. That's inspirational, Bill. That is. I use that word probably too much, but that's inspirational. So let me ask you, where do you see St. Joseph's College in 5 years?
Everywhere. How's that? Everywhere. I mean, we cannot be chained, okay, by how things have been done in the past. We've got to be innovative, we have to be creative, and we've got to be extremely business like. All right. We will not incur large debt. We will use avenues and venues that provide income to us. We will develop new programming, okay, that the community is in need of. And the community now has expanded far beyond Rensselaer, all right? Always pushing and pushing. Will we have accreditation back? Probably not in the next 10 years, but that doesn't mean we rule it out. But we are a mean, lean machine that responds to community needs and will continue to do so.
Bill, is there anything that I haven't asked you, or any final words, anything that you'd like to address that you'd like our listeners to know?
I guess I would say look at St. Joseph's College as perhaps a model that there is life after terrible times a lot of these institutions are going through. But my comment about make decisions today that you wish you made tomorrow, these institutions can survive these cutbacks. But someone has to have the courage to decide to make the cutbacks so you can live again tomorrow. The whole formatting of higher education, 120 credits, that's going to change. The credit was designed as an academic unit. It's now simply turned into a billable. Focus on the student as a learner. The focus should be on learning. Focus on students' learning styles. All right. The whole microscope of the world is looking at American higher education. How are we responding to today's challenges? Same old won't do it. Look at St. Joe's as a possible model for your institution. Not to change what you do, but maybe to add to what you do.
All right. Bill, if our listeners are interested in exploring St. Joseph or getting in touch, how do they do so?
You can contact me at bill.carroll at stjoes.edu.
And how do you spell Carroll?
Carroll.
Bill.Carroll at stjoes.edu. And are you online? Are you on social media? What's the website address or anything like that?
Well, I have a website. I have a Hunter Global Education. And, they can email me at wjc@hunterglobal.edu too. .com, excuse me. I'm getting things.
And St. Joseph's is stjoescollege.edu. Is that correct?
It's, it's St. Joe's .edu.
Okay, St. Joe's. stjoes.edu. Okay, perfect. Bill, thank you so much for being our guest today. Bill Carroll, Executive Director of St. Joseph's College of Indiana. It has been a pleasure. And I know that our listeners will learn a lot and learn a lot, especially about transformation, institutional change, and how hope can be derived from that. So best of luck to you with the future of St. Joseph's College. And thank you again for being our guest.
And Pat, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.